Happy weekend. This is Genevieve Stafford Jack and welcome back to my channel. Today's question is, should I invest in other provinces? Should I buy properties or property in other cities? What a golden question. So this particular question I'd encountered during coaching with one of my students. Her name is Yolanda. She stays in Cape Town and she was interested in purchasing an investment opportunity outside of Cape Town. And what was interesting is at the time she explained that this particular area is so good for tourists, so I could use it in terms of a B&B or that long stay self catering type of housing, or when it's there's not many tourists, I could just have somebody stay there. And I found it quite an engaging conversation while we were going through coaching that Yolanda had positioned. Another student says to me, you know what, Jen, I stay in Johannesburg and I want to know, in Durban, there are so many golden opportunities. Can I go back and invest in Durban because that is where I hail from? And look, I related so much to that because I too am from Durban. I too also grew up in an area what we refer to as a high density area, meaning there's just a lot of people that stay in a particular small square meterage. So let me give you an example of what do I mean a high density area. The building that I stayed in, right? It had 12 flats connected right across. It started on the ground floor and moved all the way to the ninth floor. So which then means that 12 flats attached to each other at the bottom, and it's replicated ground floor to the ninth floor, which means 10 times over, which means we're sitting at about 120 flats. And guess what? There were three of these blocks. Yes, three of these blocks in very, very close proximity. So growing up with there's just a lot of people. So much like my students, I related to what she was saying. Like, Jen, there's certain parts in Durban that we can get like property so dirt cheap. But she was just afraid. Why? Because she was in Johannesburg. So that's really where I'm centering these questions on. And this is a type of engagement that I had with my students to ask them, okay, cool. Yes, I get what you're saying, and I get your bigger picture. Now I want to ask you, where are you in your current property investing journey? Because you may also consider, couldn't I buy outside a province, outside of the city that I'm staying in? I want you to answer that question for me down in the comments below because I love hearing from you. Now, I'm sure I've given you that small chance to answer, right? So, the question why I keep asking, where are you in your journey? I need to draw a picture for you. I trust that you will indulge me for this very short moment. We go to property investing education. We get the education. We now start understanding we're looking for property for a specific strategy. So in property investing, we say the strategy first, which means what do I want to get out of property investing? Do I want passive income or do I want capital, which is a capital flip, right? Do I want one lump sum of money or do I want small bits of money every month in the form of what will come through as your rental income? So when we understand what our strategy is, our strategy will lead us to the area that we are interested in. Meaning, if I am now interested in a high density area and I want to flip, the chances are in an area where there's a lot of people, most times, and I'm not saying this is a golden rule, I'm saying most times, my research has told me in this particular area, you'll probably have your civil servants or your tradesmen or people that have got your 8 to 5 kind of job, but they can't quite make a bond as yet at the bank, or their earnings, should I say, that what they earn may not just get to a point where they could get a bond to buy in that particular area, which then drives that particular family unit to constantly rent until that they can get to this particular affordability, right? So now that I know that in my space, if I'm wanting passive income, I may start with the 2 bed, 1 bath, which then means my rental income. I also want to understand the area I'm going to invest in. I'm going to research the area. I'm going to link up on top here and to a video that I've done in the past that actually shows you ultimately how to get to the area of your choice. So now that we understand our strategy and our area, this is when we start looking for our property, right? Because the whole idea is not just to go and look for the property. The whole idea is to understand, to know what we want from the property that we are going to invest in, and then to understand our area to see if that strategy is going to work in this particular area, and then we go for the property. So now that we've got this picture, my strategy tick, my area tick, I'm looking for my property. So if we believe that going outside of the city or outside of the province will serve us best, and we beginners, this is where my concern comes in. This concern is really just to me, and this is why I'd love to share it with you, right? And the concern comes in when we decide we're going to buy outside of city, outside of province. The person or persons that will be our eyes on the ground to actually go and view this property, do they have the same interest as you have in property investing? Do they even understand that you are potentially looking for a structure, a property that is run down, that needs a little bit of renovating to bring it up to market value for you to sell it? Do they understand the makings of what you had gone for in terms of property investing education? Right? That is one question to think about. If you say, you know what, Jen, the person is with me, they're on my side, they're in my corner, tick, I can put my head on the block. And also, alternatively, I will be going down to or going out to this particular province from time to time. Then I say, if that's where your comfort level is, cool. But just always keep at the back of your mind, there is no one that is more vested in your interest than you are. Because sometimes we say our friend, our neighbor, our family, they got my back. It's cool to have your back. But there's no one that will do due diligence like you would, because you know your bigger picture. All right? So here is where you start weighing the pros and the cons. Should I? Shouldn't I? The next thing to consider is you are going to be potentially renovating. There's going to be service providers involved. When there are problems on site, meaning when there are snags that you may have hit and you want to go and actually investigate, hey, this service provider quoted me X, we already exhausted X, and we are now going into a bigger figure. Did I budget for this? And you want to go and understand, what is this extra amount for? Will the person that is in the city that you are buying in be able to give you fair enough feedback? Will they be able to manage your stakeholders, your service provider? Right? That is something to consider. When you're managing service providers, it's not always easy to do this telephonically. Most times it's good to resolve any sort of issues, especially when it comes to cha-ching. My next point is really a concluding point. My concluding point is I've asked tons of questions. I've asked you tons of questions. Ultimately, I want to understand from you, would it not be a lot more easier for you to find property close to you, 20 minutes perhaps, 20 kilometers perhaps, so that when you've got any issues and things like that, you manage the process and you get comfortable with the end-to-end process before you decide to actually make property journey outside of the province, outside of the city where you're in, which then may add additional gray hair to you. Because I say, getting the actual experience, gaining that experience, somehow just makes one sit a little bit more square. If you are anything like me, I want to hear from you in the comments below, right? When you have accomplished something, does your excitement not just go to another level? It's like you get so proud of yourself, not pride, but proud of yourself, like, oh my gosh, I did it, I did it. Well, I'm like that. And I just get like, oh, this is exciting, I can do it again. And this is for me what property investing feels like. When I was able to master something close to me, I was able to start looking for something slightly further from me. But I still keep a lot of what I do in property very, very close to me, for just in case that particular day I have a potential investor that I have found and I want to go and view with them. Because some of the properties that I have sent investors to that are a little bit further away from me, more especially during this pandemic, I've had no control. I've had faith in the person that I was able to speak to, but I had no control. And it made me feel slightly like, you know. But on the other hand, this is what property investing is all about, gaining experience so that you can execute this particular skill set wherever you go in the world. So, with all the questions that I did ask around these situations, I want to hear again from you in the comments below. What tickles your fancies? Would you still consider investing out of province? Are you really truly comfortable with the person that is your eyes, so to speak, on the ground, that has told you this is indeed solid? So we've come to the end of the video, and I trust that information and the barrage of questions were informative for you. If you want to hear those questions again, nothing stops you from going right back to the beginning and writing down those questions, doing some introspection, and really asking yourself, should I invest in other provinces, in other cities? So take good care, continue enjoying the weekend, and tomorrow is Women's Day. I will see you tomorrow.